How you doing, everybody? It's Andrew. Welcome to another episode of Wicked New England. I'm here with
Anthony.
And John.
All right, guys. So as you can see behind us, might give you a hint as to what this episode is about. So we're a little excited about this one. So excited, in fact, we had to make it, 20 feet big, just to show our excitement for it, right? So you know what we're talking about. Talk about Ouija boards. Talk about witch talking boards. Talk about spirit boards. Whatever you refer to talking about them over the years. To many people, there are many different names for them, but in a roundabout way, they're all the same. So, on that, who wants to start us off?
Well, I guess I'd like to talk about, as the resident skeptic, I guess I'd like to talk about what some people would deem as the scientific explanation as to how they work. So what some people believe is it would be something called the ideomotor effect. And so essentially, most if not all people have experienced this. It's the idea of when you expect something to happen, your body just moves on its own. So an example of this could be like if someone throws a ball at you and you weren't quite ready, but your hand still goes up to catch the ball. You know, or if someone flinches at you and then you flinch instinctively. So it's more of an instinctive type of idea. Now, I'm not saying that's how it works, but I feel like it's kind of my job as the resident skeptic to bring that up.
Well, I was expecting $1 million check to be deposited in my account, but sadly, I did not receive that amount of money.
That was not your motor effect.
There's always semantics and fine red tape.
Gotta love it.
All right, so why don't we rewind this a little bit, back to the beginning, if you will, at least as beginning as I could find. That was beginning in China around 1100 AD, and originally the practice of divination, or contacting spirits, used a planchette-like piece that held a pen in the middle. Actually, it was more like spirit writing. They didn't have the board like you're commonly seen with the letters and so forth. And as you can see, the Wicked New England logo on top of there, folks, so that we would not get sued for copyright infringement or anything like that. But they would put it in there, and the spirit would move through your hands and move the planchette around, and it would write the words that were coming from the spirit that they contacted. And that practice evolved over time to talking boards, which eventually had the letters and the planchette, just like you're commonly seeing here. And essentially got rid of the pen, and then it would hover over the letters, spelling out those phrases. Okay? Now, talking boards escalated in popularity during the 1800s as part of the spiritualist movement. So people were opening up, they were trying new things, they were trying to contact spirits. These things were getting less and less taboo, if you will. You weren't hung on a tree and called a witch, right? If you did something that was maybe out there a little bit more. We're definitely past that point in time at this point. So divination and communicating with spirits, while maybe it wasn't fully mainstream yet, it wasn't the taboo that it was, like, let's say during like the Salem witch trials or something like that. And then the board, as you see it here, or a pretty close representation of it, was actually around 1901 when the Ouija brothers patented what we would recognize as the most iconic board today as far as talking board, as far as mass production too. The funny part about it is actually mass produced as a parlor game for children and so forth, and talking with ghosts, right? It's a fun thing to do. Everybody should do it on a Friday night. So despite whatever stories you've heard or haven't heard or anything like that, originally it was marketed as a game because they didn't see anything of it, even though for years prior, talking boards and other similar devices, if you will, had been used to commune with spirits. So yeah, I think that's a little funny that they market it to children.
Yeah, fun fact, I think it's $21.99 right now, the current Ouija board. It is 8 and up, is for the age range.
So, sorry folks, you can't drink a beer, but you can summon a demon.
And it's ironic how many millions of copies of these boards are actually out in population right now. This game it is still considered a game, and I don't fuck with the Ouija board. I really don't. I've been around the Ouija board with other individuals using it. I've also remember a girl that I went to high school with, I can't think of her name, and I wouldn't mention it here, but she would actually get very, very tense. She would start getting the shakes, especially when she'd be on it for too long, and some weird and strange things would happen as far as answers go. I think maybe as a child I dabbled in it once and never again. I can honestly say I don't remember what happened, but then again, that was probably almost 40 years ago. So we won't talk about that. But I mean, I don't really trust the Ouija board. I believe that you can potentially use it as long as you have good intentions. But if you have some seriously bad, evil intentions, you might be able to summon things that you may not really be prepared for. I've also heard that you may actually, over time of consistent use of the Ouija board, you just might attract some senses of evil, so to speak. So I mean, that's all I really got. I did watch earlier today, interesting little documentary, I guess you could say, called Britain's Most Haunted Pubs. And they actually used the Ouija board. Some of what I said as far as the overtime use was explained during that documentary. It was also explained, and I'm just gonna loosely tell you what they kind of explained as far as the proper use of the Ouija board. And that is a slight prayer beforehand. One person should be selected to be kind of like the leader of the group of who's going to touch the board. That person is going to be the first person to touch the board at the planchette. And that individual also single individually, one by one, invite everybody else in to touch the planchette, to guide the planchette across the board and play this game, if you would. And towards the closing, you always make sure you say goodbye to her. Make sure the planchette lands on goodbye, as you see at the bottom of the screen. And then you'd kind of say a slight little prayer of sorts where you thank the spirits for communicating with you, wish everybody well, safe journeys on that played the game. And you know, they kind of left it at that, so to speak. So I mean, by all means, if you're curious about anything haunted, check out Britain's Most Haunted Pubs. There's some interesting history and some interesting things that happen in the documentary. They do check out 2 different pubs in Britain. So also, if you're in Britain and you like to drink, there you go. John?
So kind of back to, you were talking about some personal experience, kind of. There's only one story that I know of that's kind of connected to me. Not really connected to me, but connected to a family member of mine. When she was a kid, she would play with a Ouija board with her friend. One day, either she was sick or her friend was sick, doesn't really matter. One of them was sick, so they were just talking on the phone. Well, my family member had decided to take out the Ouija board and play with it on her own because she always thought, oh, it's just my friend moving it. Well, apparently she started playing with it, it moved on its own. That freaked her out enough to say, I'm never playing with this again. So, supposedly, she took the Ouija board, threw it down the stairs into the basement, and it was never seen again. My guess, it was probably thrown out. But yeah, that's the one story that I have from kind of connected to my own place.
Gotcha. Well, just moving back into what you were talking before, though, with the ideomotor response. Definitely first identified in 1853. Plenty of both spiritual and scientific world discredit talking boards. So that is the one thing that they come up with the most, right? So many studies on that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. I've seen it many times over the years where a scientist has been wrong. Sorry, folks, science isn't always right. Sometimes the hypothesis is great, but if your control group sucks or if you don't have the right facts, then your conclusion's just flat out wrong. So be good scientists and make sure you have the right proof. Now, on the flip side of debunking Ouija boards, moving into like the stories and so forth that they were saying about, there's plenty of stigma that surrounds them, right? Like when you see a Ouija board on television, what do you automatically think of? Demon, scary, something's gonna kill me. It's not a one-to-one, right? Plenty of people use Ouija boards every day and don't have a bad experience. I'm sure a lot of people use Ouija boards every day and freak out their younger brothers and sisters. Okay, I had an older brother too. So just saying, things happen. But you know, you look anywhere on the internet, movies, TV, Ouija boards are definitely part of popular culture, if you will, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. So I'll share my story with you guys. You'll probably think I'm nuttier than a fruitcake, but I really don't care because it's my life. I lived it. So, but anyway, I was about 7 years old, and I wasn't the one using the Ouija board. A family member was. I'm going to hide the identity of that individual, so we'll just say family member. And dabbling in some other things that maybe they didn't fully understand. They were using Ouija board with their friends, and me as an innocent bystander, if you will, a knife actually came off the counter and stuck in the wall right next to me. And I will never forget that as long as I live. It's enough to make me not want to touch a Ouija board, just because I wasn't even the one using it. But I guess what was more troubling after that was the multiple attempts at trying to get rid of the board and that not working either. In short, I will say we tried burning it and such. You know, I don't know, maybe it's the laminate that's on like the type of boards that they make or something like that, and that's why it wouldn't burn. I don't know. Maybe there's a scientific reason for that, doesn't matter. When you're 7 years old, it's kind of freaky, right? When something you pour lighter fluid on and stuff, it doesn't catch on fire, that's bad, right? Why does that not burn? And I'm sure there could be a million reasons, but I really don't care. Again, that's my experience. It wasn't a good one. There's a couple other pieces to that story too that I'm not gonna talk about because you'll definitely haul me away to the nut house. But it's a freaky enough subject for me that I don't view it as a light topic or something that I would take on very easily or wanting to, you know. I'm not saying I'm opposed to ever using one again in my life or something like that, but I'd have to have a pretty distinct reason as to why I would need to, or I would need that information I'd be gaining from communicating on something like a board. And that may sound kind of hypocritical from somebody who is interested in, you know, paranormal investigation and looking for proof of the other side and so forth. I just have more of a hard no on that particular method. So on that, I'll hand it off to Anthony and John if there's anything else they'd like to talk about with this one, but I kind of feel like I've said what I need to say on the subject.
Now, as far as use, we do, and I'm sure you've recognized in previous podcasts, that we have a Ouija board blanket of sorts, decorating usually the table that we're presenting the podcast. That's just using as a decoration aspect. We are not actually using the blanket as a board.
Try to. The planchette keeps scrunching it up into a ball. No,
So-
seriously, it's just decoration. Folks.
But I mean, as far as the decoration aspect and actual use as a board, I've got no problem as a decoration piece. To try to use it, I would be a hard no on that aspect. Like I said, there's vague memories of, I think, my cousins, maybe my sister, older sister, mind you, and they can be just as devilish as older brothers. But there's just something about that board that just does freak me out, legitimately. I have been in the presence while the board's being used, but I personally will not touch the board. When the board is in use, I am usually at a far decent enough distance where I can be comfortable away from the situation, away from the board, and I'm just a viewer watching the whole thing go on. But yeah, even then, it still makes me nervous, even if nothing's coming up on the board, as I have witnessed. And maybe if we do a podcast in a certain place, you might actually see what I mean by that. John, you got anything else?
One thing to say, now I know it's not officially licensed, however, we had actually gone to the Oddities and Curiosities Expo.
Yes.
That was really cool. One of the booths was selling custom Ouija boards. I thought that was really cool to see, especially because they were in all sorts of shapes, sizes. I thought that was interesting to see.
In light of that,
It was actually very interesting. I'd never actually seen a circular Ouija board.
Yeah.
I am going to implant a picture here. So you'll see it post-editing. But we actually have a custom Ouija board that was made for us, ran on a laser. So it's probably one of the only stainless steel Ouija boards around. Definitely the only one with the Wicked New England logo on it. So that one is personalized than ours. I did have plans to show you that during the podcast, but I will put it up here. And
What
you'll
he's going
definitely
to
see it.
actually do is he's going to cut us out of the screen. You'll hear us talking, and he's just going to put it right up on the screen for you. So it's in full view. You're not going to miss anything.
Now, if you want our Wicked New England Ouija board, it's a small price of $4,000. Easy money. I mean, this awesome.
I know we're running low on funds trying to do this all and with the equipment and everything else, but I think we might be pushing it at this point.
If you want
Our
one with a
viewership ratings
manufacturing
need to go a
defect,
little bit higher.
$3,999.
They're not for sale, but as we get a bigger group, subscribers and so forth, I do plan on in the future possibly raffling it off to somebody. Not for money, of course, just maybe a trivia question or something like that in the comments. We'll have something going where we'll raffle off at least one of the boards, if not both. So look forward to that in the future, folks. But we good?
I think this has been Wicked New England.
Have a good one, folks. Catch you on the next one.